Redmond O'Neal has a history of legal troubles. The 33-year-old son of Farrah Fawcett and Raymond O'Neal, now facing half a dozen new charges.
Redmond O'Neal is the son of two famous Hollywood stars, Farrah Fawcett and Raymond O'Neal. Most people think that being born into a celebrity family means having a perfect life with money and opportunities. But Redmond's story shows us that fame and wealth cannot protect someone from mental illness and personal struggles. Today, at 39 years old, he remains in a psychiatric hospital with little hope of recovery. Redmond's mental health problems are very serious and complicated. Doctors have diagnosed him with 3 different conditions that make his treatment extremely difficult. He has schizophrenia, which makes it hard for him to understand what is real and what is not. He also has bipolar disorder, which causes his moods to swing from very high to very low. The third condition is antisocial personality disorder, which means he has trouble caring about other people's feelings and rights. Having just one of these mental health conditions would be challenging for anyone, but having all 3 at the same time makes Redmond's situation almost impossible to treat. The medicines that help with one condition sometimes make the other conditions worse. This creates a constant struggle for his doctors, who are trying to find the right balance to help him get better. Redmond's problems did not start recently. For many years, he used illegal drugs like heroin and methamphetamine. Doctors believe that using these drugs for so long has permanently changed his brain. When someone's brain chemistry is damaged this way, normal treatments often do not work as well as they should. This makes his recovery even more difficult. There are also reports that Redmond experienced trauma as a child that still affects him today. Childhood trauma can follow a person throughout their entire life, making it harder for them to heal from other problems. When someone has both mental illness and unresolved trauma from their past, it creates layers of difficulty that are very hard to overcome. In 2018, Redmond was charged with serious crimes including armed robbery and violent attacks on innocent people. However, when psychiatrists examined him, they found that he was not mentally fit to stand trial. This means his mind was so confused that he could not understand what was happening in court or help his lawyers defend him. Instead of going to trial, the court ordered him to receive psychiatric treatment. The criminal charges against him are still waiting in legal files. They will remain there until his mental health improves enough for him to understand court proceedings. But many people wonder if that day will ever come. His condition has remained largely the same for years, with very little improvement. Inside the psychiatric facilities where he lives, Redmond's behavior is unpredictable. Sometimes he becomes very paranoid and believes people are trying to harm him. Other times he shuts down completely and will not talk to anyone. The medical staff tries to help him with medications and therapy, but he does not always cooperate with treatment. On some days, Redmond refuses to take his medications because he believes they are poison. This is a common symptom of schizophrenia, where patients cannot tell the difference between helpful medicine and harmful substances. On other days, he might feel sad about his situation and seem to want help, but then quickly return to being angry or disconnected from reality. One of the most heartbreaking aspects of Redmond's situation is his isolation from family. He rarely sees relatives, and in many cases, this is because he refuses to meet with them. Mental health experts know that having supportive family connections is very important for recovery, especially in complicated cases like his. But Redmond seems to have built emotional walls that keep everyone at a distance. The cost of Redmond's care is covered by a trust fund that his mother, Farrah Fawcett, set up before she died. This trust pays for all his medical expenses, which add up to enormous amounts each year. The people who manage this money are concerned, not because they are running out of funds, but because despite spending so much money on his treatment, he is not getting better. This situation raises difficult questions about whether money alone can solve mental health problems. In Redmond's case, money can pay for doctors, hospitals, and medications, but it cannot force someone to want to get better. It also cannot erase years of drug damage to the brain or heal deep emotional wounds from the past. Farrah Fawcett spent her final months worrying about her son's future. Even as she was dying from cancer, her thoughts were focused on what would happen to Redmond after she was gone. Friends who visited her during her last days said she talked about him constantly. She wondered if he would ever find peace and escape from his addiction and legal troubles. At the time of her death in June 2009, Redmond was in jail for drug-related crimes. The fact that Farrah had to communicate with her son through prison walls made her final days even sadder. But she never gave up on their relationship, even when it would have been easier to focus only on her own illness and pain. Farrah's love for her son went beyond words. She carefully planned how to help him after her death by creating a $4.5 million trust fund. But this was not just a gift of money. She made strict rules about how the money could be used, ensuring it would only go toward health care and treatment, not toward buying drugs or other harmful things. This decision showed how well Farrah understood her son's addiction. She knew that giving someone with a drug problem unlimited access to money could make their situation worse, not better. So she created a system where every dollar would be used to help him get better, not to feed his addiction. Farrah also asked her closest friends to watch over Redmond and stay involved in his life after she died. She wanted to create a network of people who cared about him and could provide guidance and support. She understood that recovering from addiction and mental illness requires more than just money. It needs human connection and care. Unfortunately, even with all of Farrah's careful planning, Redmond's struggles continued after her death. This painful reality shows that sometimes, even a mother's deepest love and best efforts cannot save a child from their own inner battles. When Raymond O'Neal died in December 2023, it brought more complications to the family story. His death did not bring the family together for healing, but instead highlighted how broken their relationships had always been. The O'Neal family had experienced decades of conflict, anger, and hurt that death could not magically erase. One of the most tragic aspects of Ryan's funeral was that Redmond could not attend. Because he was confined to a psychiatric facility, he was unable to say goodbye to his father or grieve with the rest of his family. Medical staff decided that allowing him to leave, even briefly, might be too dangerous for his fragile mental state. The O'Neal family had been troubled for many years before Ryan's death. His daughter Tatum had not spoken to him for 25 years, though they had recently begun to repair their relationship. His son Griffin chose to stay away from the funeral entirely, carrying too much pain from their difficult past to participate in mourning. Both Tatum and Griffin had spoken publicly about growing up in an abusive household. They described a childhood filled with physical and emotional harm, neglect, and exposure to drugs and alcohol. I painted a picture of a home where children were not safe or properly cared for. One of the most disturbing accusations was that Ryan had introduced Redmond to drugs when he was very young. If this is true, it means that the father who should have protected his son instead led him down a path of destruction. This early exposure to substances may have set the stage for Redmond's lifelong battles with addiction and mental illness. Redmond's troubled past continues to affect his present situation. His history of substance abuse began early and became a pattern that defined much of his adult life. He was first arrested at age 20 for drug possession, and this was just the beginning of a long series of legal problems. Over the years, Redmond was arrested at least 13 times for drug-related crimes. This was not occasional bad judgment, but a deep addiction that he could not overcome, despite multiple attempts at rehabilitation. The cycle was always the same. He would enter treatment with hope, but eventually relapse and return to using drugs. Along with his addiction came increasingly violent behavior. At first, he would break things when he was angry, but over time, his violence began targeting people. This combination of drug use and uncontrolled anger became very dangerous. In May 2018, Redmond's behavior reached a terrifying peak. Within just 1 week, he allegedly committed an armed robbery, stabbed a stranger, attacked someone with a broken bottle, and was connected to 5 other unprovoked assaults around Los Angeles. One victim was stabbed in the head in a particularly brutal attack. When police arrested him, they found heroin and methamphetamine in his possession. Throughout his time in various institutions, Redmond has consistently blamed his parents for his problems. He holds them responsible for his addiction and criminal behavior, pointing to their celebrity lifestyle and their own substance abuse issues as the cause of his downfall. So resentment runs so deep that he refuses to see family members who try to visit him. Redmond's story is especially tragic because of who his parents were. Farrah Fawcett was beloved for her role in Charlie's Angels, and Ryan O'Neal was a major Hollywood star. Many people would assume that being born into such famous and wealthy family would guarantee a good life. Instead, it seems to have contributed to his problems. The glamorous world of Hollywood often hides darker truths about family dysfunction and substance abuse. Redmond claims that his parents' own struggles and the chaotic environment of their celebrity lifestyle left him damaged from an early age. Whether this is entirely true or not, it is clear that fame and money could not protect him from serious mental illness and addiction. Today, Redmond remains confined to psychiatric facilities with little hope of improvement. His name appears in news stories not because of any achievements or contributions to society, but because of his arrests, addiction, and violent crimes. This is a sad twist of fate for the son of two people who were once among the most recognized faces in America. His case raises difficult questions about mental health, addiction, and family responsibility. Could things have been different if he had grown up in a more stable environment? Would better early intervention have changed his path? Or was he always destined to struggle with these issues regardless of his circumstances? What makes Redmond's story even more heartbreaking is that despite all the money, medical care, and attention devoted to helping him, there has been very little progress. His mother's love, expressed through careful financial planning and concern for his future, has not been enough to save him. The trust fund she created continues to pay for his care, but it cannot buy his willingness to participate in treatment or heal the deep wounds in his mind. The story of Redmond O'Neal serves as a reminder that mental illness and addiction do not discriminate based on wealth or fame. These conditions can affect anyone, regardless of their advantages in life. It also shows how childhood trauma and early exposure to drugs can create problems that last a lifetime, even when significant resources are available for treatment. Perhaps most importantly, Redmond's story illustrates the limits of what love and money can accomplish when someone is battling severe mental illness. His mother's devotion and his family's wealth could provide care and support, but they could not force healing or create the internal motivation necessary for recovery. Sometimes, despite everyone's best efforts, the human mind remains trapped in patterns of illness that are extremely difficult to break. As Redmond continues his stay in psychiatric facilities, his future remains uncertain. The criminal charges from 2018 are still waiting to be resolved, but that can only happen if his mental state improves enough for him to stand trial. Given his lack of progress over the past several years, it is unclear whether that day will ever come. His story continues to unfold as a tragic example of how mental illness, addiction, and family dysfunction can combine to create a situation that seems almost impossible to resolve, even with unlimited resources and the best medical care available.